Let's talk about social enterprises, what they are, how they work, and how they impact society. I'm Michael Conger. I'm an entrepreneurship professor at Miami University, and I teach and do research focused on the role that entrepreneurs can play in addressing the biggest problems that face our planet and all the people that live on it. I also spend a lot of my time trying to understand how social enterprises, that's businesses and nonprofits that are focused on social and environmental problems, may be reshaping the world that we live in. So, what does social action look like in organizations? First, it's important to remember that all organizations affect and are affected by society and the environment in important ways. We expect for-profit businesses to create economic growth and to create job opportunities, and we expect them to pay taxes. Organizations also focus more specifically on social initiatives through things like CSR efforts, corporate social responsibility, through community and stakeholder engagement, philanthropic and sustainability practices, and investing in social or philanthropic initiatives. And some organizations pursue a hybrid social mission where they try to find a balance between creating value for society as one of their primary initiatives of who they are as an organization and what they do, balancing that with economic value creation. Let's look at an example. So this is Shane Gring. He graduated from a prestigious university in 2008 with an architecture degree and then found it was impossible to get a job because it was the worst period in the housing crash and the global economic crisis. With no job prospects in sight, Shane spent a lot of his time volunteering for Habitat for Humanity. Shane was interested in sustainability and he learned a lot about green building techniques and materials. And so he started to work with Habitat to develop green building practices on their project sites. This ultimately led Shane to founding Bold and Everbuild Pro, a pair of organizations that were certified benefit corporations, providing necessary on-site training and experience for building professionals that were looking to become credentialed as LEED certified professionals. And they did this by placing them in projects to build green homes for Habitat. So Habitat got skilled labor. More of their projects were green buildings. The workforce for more sustainable construction and LEED buildings grew. Building professionals and new workers like graduating college students got access to lucrative and environmentally responsible industry, and Shane's company was successful. So I met Shane in 2010 in Boulder, Colorado when this idea was just getting off the ground. But later, Shane sold the company and went on to work for the U.S. Green Building Council in Washington, D.C., where he helps shape policy for the construction industry nationwide. Oh, and that's right. That prestigious university Shane came from was a place just outside of Cincinnati called Miami. So what are the things that characterize social enterprises? Well, they tend to try to balance both social and economic value and find a way to optimize both. They also think about their role in creating value and capturing value as separate things. They also tend to consider a broad array of stakeholders, including their customers, investors, and employees, but also their communities and the natural environment. They also tend to be driven by a strong social mission and tied their values to that. And people often join these organizations because they want to be a part of that culture in their work. And finally, these organizations are often involved in activism, engaging in social movement organizations, lobbying policymakers, joining grassroots initiatives, and community organizing. Let's consider the implications of using business methods as a vehicle for trying to solve social and environmental problems. So there's lots of positive and negative things that come from this approach. Let's talk about a few of them. First, some of the negatives. The saying goes that what gets counted counts. Both nonprofits and for-profit organizations tend to focus on the measurable objectives that they set for themselves. It is very common for organizational leaders to get fixated on hitting their numbers, and the pressure to do this only intensifies when those numbers represent financial goals for the organization. It's easy to think of examples where pursuing profits leads to decisions that hurt people on the planet, even in the most high-minded of organizations. But of course, not all bad outcomes are caused by businesses because of a conscious decision to chase profits. Unintended consequences can be just as bad. And it's unlikely that many companies actually set out to willfully ignore the welfare of others or the environment, but it's easy to see how that can happen anyway, just as a byproduct of what may seem like benign or even beneficial actions that they're trying to do. Then there's the basic question of whether entrepreneurs and corporations should be involved in decisions that concern the public good or policy decisions at all in the first place. And more to the point, whether we as a society even bother to have that conversation. Take, for example, Facebook, who, after several scandals, it focused on their privacy policies primarily, came under the scrutiny of government watchdog agencies in many countries. But because of their size and influence, Facebook has been able to simply ignore the demands of these government agencies in many of these cases. The agencies either lack the authority to enforce these policies, or the penalties that they have and are able to levy against Facebook are meaningless because of Facebook's deep pockets. They can just pay. Facebook repeatedly has asserted that their approach to these issues is based on their beliefs about freedom of speech and information, basically arguing that they ultimately know what's best for society and see no problem ignoring policies that don't align with their views. So, the question here is, who decides? Who gets to decide these things, and who do we want to decide? Is handing off the responsibility for solving a given social problem and perhaps all the subsequent decisions that go along with it, is handing that off to an entrepreneur what we really want to do? And more to the point, are we even bothering to ask this question? No doubt, including business in our toolbox for addressing social and environmental problems raises some real concerns. But let's also consider the benefits of having these tools at our disposal. First, businesses have the ability to scale in ways that other kinds of organizations simply do not. With very few exceptions, maybe organized world religions come to mind. But other than that, businesses have the ability to address problems at a scale that is unmatched by other organizations. As an example, the United Way is by far the largest nonprofit organization in the United States, and it generates roughly $5 billion in revenues. But that is a drop in the bucket compared to Walmart, who generates closer to $500 billion, and that's just one example. Many of the most difficult problems that we face are also the biggest. Poverty, disease, hunger, education, you name it, all of them have the need for scalable solutions in one way or the other. So businesses are also very good at figuring out where, when, and how to deliver value most effectively. In particular, figuring out how people want and need to be helped with their problems, and then finding solutions to deliver that are what businesses are designed to do. And business has also proven to be highly effective at making the most of scarce resources. Efficiency and continuous improvement, again, are a big part of why people work together in organizations in the first place. So, what should we think about social enterprises? I don't have all the answers, but these are issues that we should consider. What I can say is that business organizations are one of, if not the most influential component in our society. Businesses affect all of our lives in important ways, and I am quite sure that this will continue for the rest of our lifetime and probably long after. So, the role that business can and should play in shaping our society and our world is something that we need to consider and reconsider. We need to debate and negotiate, to imagine and innovate. And if you are someone who's made working for a better world part of your own life's work, it's a conversation that you need to be part of too.